Grace and peace in Jesus. As you can tell, my voice is only partially here today. I don't know if I got a cold or it's allergies or too much talking over the music last night at the crab feed, which, by the way, was a very good event. But we'll plow on and see how long I can go. Well, don't say it that way, how long I can go. This time of year, for those who regularly go to the gym, are always at the health center, always working out, staying fit, this time of year can be very annoying for those people. Why? The New Year's resolution people all show up, right? Taking up all the machines, clogging up the locker room. Annoying. I'm one of them this year. Yep, me. After being away from going to the gym for a number of years, I decided this is the year to go back. Why? Why? Well, I'll tell you, it has everything to do with, ultimately, pursuing the good life. Oikonomics, 5 capitals, investing. Our theme. And it was reflecting on that prompted me to take the plunge and go back. But I'll come back to that. Let's review. Let's recap where we are in this series. Pursuing the good life. That's our theme for this series. And no, we're not talking about some just positive thinking, self-help thing. No, this is pursuing the good life that Jesus calls us to. And it's the same pursuing, the same call as when he says, take up your cross and follow me. It's the call to discipleship. The call to discipleship is the call to embrace and pursue the good life. Because you see, like we heard a couple weeks ago, Pastor Mark talking about the rich young man whom Jesus said, hey, take everything you have, sell it, and give it to the poor, and come follow me. Jesus was not calling him to lower the quality of his life. That's how we might hear that story. Like, oh, he had to give up everything. No, he wasn't calling him to lower the quality of his life, the standard of his life. He was calling him to raise it and to invest it. The highest quality of life is life with Jesus and following him and living his way. So that's what we're talking about. Pursuing the good life is a life of discipleship. It's a life of following Christ. And it consists of all these different capitals, as we're calling them, assets, resources, gifts from God. Spiritual, of course, relational, financial, physical, and intellectual. It's all of them. But in the proper order, in the proper priority. Putting what's most important as most important and what's least important as least important. So let's take a look at that. This keeping it in the right priority, because that's what's going on in that rather strange parable we just heard. It's one of the oddest of Jesus' parables. There's one line from it. Jesus says, I tell you, use worldly wealth to gain friends for yourselves. So that's when it's gone, you'll be welcomed into eternal dwellings. Did Jesus really say that? Go out and buy some friends? Wow. He did. And he meant it. It has everything to do with what we're talking about, pursuing the good life. 5 capitals, investing. In the name of that funny name of that book, Oikonomics, household economics, managing my life. So let's look at this, the priorities, and review them. 5 types of assets, 5 types of capital. And the most important at the top of the list, spiritual. This is my relationship with Jesus Christ. This is the vertical. This is my relationship with him and all the blessings of the kingdom that he pours out on me. Forgiveness, everlasting life, the promise of resurrection, his promise to hear my prayers, his presence with me. All of that is a spiritual resource, a capital As I grow, deepening in my walk with the Lord, deepening and imitating him, I'm growing in spiritual capital. And that is the most important of these 5 that we're talking about. It's eternal. And it shapes and feeds our character, making us more like Christ and making us a blessing to this world. Now, relational capital. It's obviously relationships. Horizontal, the people in our lives, family, friends, those people that are important to us. And as we deepen our relationships with the people around us and grow more relationships, we're increasing our relational capital. Physical, ourselves, our bodies, our health, our time, how we use our time, how we take care of our health. That's an asset. That's a resource. Is that spirit? Is that part of discipleship? Yeah. God has given you. Every hour of every day he's given you and me, our bodies, to dwell within. So taking care of that, building up that resource, capital. Intellectual, knowledge, intellect, ideas, concept, creativity. So we grow intellectually, grow in knowledge, grow in concepts. That's growing that capital. And then finally, financial. So finally, financial. Well, that's what we first think of when we start using these investment metaphors, financial. That's the money, the cash, the stuff, all the things, the property we have, all the stuff, all the clothing, all the cars, everything, all those things. And that's at the bottom of the list. The Bible's very clear on that, as we'll talk about. That in pursuing the good life, these are the priorities. Problem is, that's not the way our sinful nature and our selfish nature would order these. It's not the way the systems of this world operate. Not this priority. For instance, in business world, it's more like this, right? Financial, bottom line. Got to make a profit, right? Intellectual capital is very important too. Have knowledge to make more profit and to do well. Relationships are ultimately important. Physical, not as important. Just keep working. Spiritual, does it show up on the map? Academia, we just turn the top 2 around. Okay? What is it? This is what Jesus calls us to. This is what he calls us to aspire to. What are the priorities actually in your life? How would these 5 capitals be ranked? Oh, not by what you or I think they should be, but think about your life this past week, past couple weeks, decisions you've made. What's the priority? What's most important? What's driving the others? So this is where we're going with this series, and understanding that pursuing the good life, being a disciple of Christ, is growing in these assets, but keeping them in the right order. Now, let's talk about financial. Since that's what our parable focuses on, at least on one level, focuses on financial. So let's talk about it. And this contention and this difficulty from the fact that Jesus is saying in the Word that financial is the least important. And our world operates with the understanding that it's the most important. Tension, difficulty, right? You see, it's like we operate, and I think a lot of the systems of our culture operate with this kind of understanding. That the greater my financial capital, as my income grows, as my resources, my assets, the things that I have, the more I have, then upward also goes. Happiness, fulfillment, quality of life, the good life, satisfaction, all those things. There's a correlation. I want that raise because then my life will be better, because I'll be able to have more stuff and do more things. We don't maybe think about that crassly, but that is how we operate, isn't it? More is better. Newer is better. More gadgets, more things, more income, more money. I want a higher pay. Okay? It's interesting about this. I think I might have shown this before, but it's just so fascinating. This has been studied of late. There's been more study of late by psychologists into what makes people happy. Tons of research on what makes people depressed. Not as much on what makes people happy, what makes people feel fulfilled, the quality of life. But there has been some important studies of that of late, last 10, 15 years. And what they're finding is that this chart is wrong. It's wrong. It's like this. There's a bend. It's true up to a point, but then it flattens out. And what's that little knee there, that bend in the graph? Basic needs. I got food, I got shelter, I've got basic hygiene, basic health, I got my basic needs met. And what they found is once basic needs are met, then an increase in financial capital does not result in an improved quality of life, happiness, satisfaction, fulfillment. It just is no correlation. But we live as though it did. It's so tempting. Isn't that fascinating? I found that this is the case. But what's also important to note, this is not, when I say that, this is how we operate. I'm not saying just today. This has been the case throughout society, throughout culture, throughout history. That's why the Bible speaks about this topic very clearly and warns us not only, wrong direction, not only is it get to that point, an increased financial capital does not yield increased happiness and fulfillment. Pursuing it as though it's the most important thing, top of the capital list, is dangerous. Dangerous. Here's a few things that Jesus said. Let's read this one together from Matthew 16:26. What good will be for someone to gain the whole and yet forfeit their soul? What can anyone give in exchange for their soul? In other words, what good is it if you have infinite financial capital but no spiritual capital? Okay? I mean, no, what if you have infinite financial capital but no relational capital, no friends? Is that a good life? In the same way, Jesus is saying infinite financial capital but no God, no spiritual capital, no relationship with the Maker, and no eternity to look forward to. What good is that? The spiritual is more important. Matthew 6:24, we just heard similar words in our gospel today, but let's say it together. No one can serve two masters. Either you will hate the one and love the other, or you'll be devoted to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve both God and money. You can't have them both up there at the top. Okay? I'll read this longer one. Well, I'll try to. Those who want to get rich fall into temptation, in a trap, and into many foolish and harmful desires that plunge people into ruin and destruction. See what he's saying? Getting the priorities out of whack. For the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil. Some people eager for money have wandered from the faith and pierced themselves with many griefs. Some, in overvaluing financial capital, have wrecked their spiritual capital.